Good afternoon, folks. Once again, it's Monday, 5 o'clock. You're tuned to Philly Thing Radio on WPPM-LP Philadelphia, 106.5 FM. Got a very special show for you today. Local Philly show promoter, music enthusiast, and more, Denny Horn is here today. And we're going to discuss Philly music history, his own connection with the Philly music scene, and more. And very excited to have Denny on.
Thanks, Stephen. Welcome. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So this has been in the making for a little while, and very, very happy to have you here.
Fun to be here on the radio talking to people.
Woo.
It's all good.
Yeah. Just we're kind of like going through where Denny got his start in music, and just to talk about kind of like what Philly was like, what the climate was like with the music scene and stuff.
Well, I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1952, and my parents bought a house in Oxford Circle, which is northeast Philadelphia, which, by the way, the Circle D Productions is a shout out to Oxford Circle.
Wow.
So a lot of people may not know that. As a little kid, I had all these 45s I inherited from my mother and her parents, and a lot of it was like cha-cha records and Dwayne Eddy and Gene Autry and stuff like that. I used to like all those cowboy songs. And in the front of our house, we had that bay window that overlooked the Roham Street, Souter Street, which is where we lived. And there was a 45 RPM record player, and I would, crawl up on top of the shelf and put the 45s on and look out the window. And what I was seeing was the soundtrack in my mind of my life. And usually it was like Beach Boys or something like that. Music was with me from the very beginning. Then when I went to junior high, which is 63-ish or so, and at that point I inherited all of my sister Sherry's 45 RPM records, which were 99.9% Motown. So I fell in love with that whole sound, because that was a real Philly thing, because Philly had a lot of soul. Philly's like Hall & Oates and all that stuff, Spinners, all that stuff, like the Philly sound. So
big doo-wop.
Yeah, the street corner stuff, the a cappella things. So my favorite was at the time was Stevie Wonder, the first single, Fingertips, part 1, and then you flip it over, it's part 2. And let me see, Four Tops and Al Green and Gladys Knight, all that stuff. So I was listening to all these 45s, and following in my sister's footsteps. She used to go on dances a lot. She would go to Chevu Ballroom in Upper Darby on Friday nights. Wow. And on Sundays, she would go to a place called Wagner's Ballroom, which is not far from where Einstein Hospital is, off of Broad Street. So I never went to those because she was 3 years older than me, but by the time it got to the point where I was ready to go dancing, so I started going to a place on Roosevelt Boulevard in northeast Philadelphia called Boulevard Ballroom, which was a swim club plus a ballroom. But the people that went on the show, that went on to go dancing for like $1, we would say we could pay $1 an hour and just go on and get dancing to the Motown stuff. So that was my Friday nights. Smoke a pack of cigarettes before we go in, because we were just too cool for school. So you had to smoke your cigarettes. Fortunately, I stopped by the time I was 23. So, so, and in fact, one of the key moments was a night that I put a request on a piece of paper for a Marvin Gaye song, Ain't No Mountain High, and I brought it upstairs to the DJ and took that long, slow walk to get to where the DJ was sitting. It seemed like I was going into Oz. I'm like, what's behind the closed door? And I hand him the piece of paper. He goes, yeah, sure, man, I'll play it. And then I'm walking back down to go back to the dance floor, and I look down, I see all these people doing these line dances, and like hundreds of people in unison going back and forth, and it just blew me away. Something about seeing people together in harmony, just having a good time. And there's never any trouble that I knew of, you know. So the dances were big. And then clocking forward a little bit, you know, mostly for me it was AM radio because there was no FM. So, you know, it was like the pop bands like the Buckinghams and
Was High Lit a DJ?
yeah,
at that point?
yeah, High Ski McVadio Radio Zoot. He was he was a cool cat, and actually when AM radio started to go progressive, he was one of the first people that went progressive. So that was mainly WDAS out off of Belmont Avenue. So I would listen to this one guy late at night. I think it was My Father's Son was his nickname, and he would play Jimi Hendrix's Third Stone from the Sun to open up his show, and I thought that was really cool. And I was really digging the progressive radio, the fact that, you know, there's songs that are out there that are a lot different than what the standard tunes are. You know? And but yet I'll always have that love for doo-wop and standards. So I started listening to all that. I guess you would say I was bending left and going in that direction. And that's when I got the black light in my basement in my parents' house and put up the weird posters and started spending my allowance on 45 records. I'd get my little Stingray bike and drive up to Cottman Avenue to Record Museum and buy 45s like Electric Prunes and the Blues Magoos. And
Yeah, the garage rock when it was breaking out.
yeah. In fact, one of those bands came to a department store. I think it was either Blues Magoos or Blue Cheer, and it was E.J. Corvettes in the Great Northeast. And they were chased out of the store by all these women with their umbrellas. They were like physically chasing them out of the store.
Wow.
Pretty hilarious.
In-store performance.
Yeah, well, they tried. You know. I don't think they got past the hardware department. But, you know, it was always cool, all the edgy stuff. And then, you know, now we're into the 60s. I'm hanging out on Castor Avenue in Northeast Philly, and at a certain point, XPN came along, FM radio came along. So MMR was one of the leaders, and all the jocks were really cool, and they were playing this cool music. And, of course, WXPN, which is part of the, you know, UAP. And a shout-out to Bruce Warren. It's got to be, like, the genius of all program directors in this country, if not the world. And he just his playlists are unreal. So I was a big XPN fan. In fact, one night we were at a party and talking to this DJ on the phone for like 3 hours, and she goes, "Why don't you guys come down?" So we come down with like 200 albums.
Wow.
And just like liberated the turntable and
that's awesome.
read A Christmas Story and gave her some of our special orange juice that we were.
Yeah. I think Kirsten started out on XPN. I think he started out over there. And
Yeah,
got into
for
MMR.
sure. Yeah, there were some really good people. They're a solid crew, you know, and they still do some great stuff. Like World Cafe is like one of my favorite places to go to. So now moving along in the years, I go to high school. So I graduated high school in 1969, and my buddy Terry and I decided we would leave the confines of Castor Avenue to try out a new crowd down in Hunting Park in North Philly. And these kids were great. And there was like 100 people hanging out there. And we were like, well, how do we approach these people? And one guy comes up to us, puts out his hand. He goes, "Hey, I'm Joe Black. I went to Woodstock." And I'll never forget this guy. And he's still a good friend, and he became one of my music mentors. Like Joe used to have these Sunday sessions in his parents' house on Wyoming Avenue. He would play records after we were partying all Saturday night. Wow. And he had, you know, the psychedelic basement and stuff. But he would put the tone arm on a particular cut. He wouldn't just play a whole album side. And I thought that was pretty incredible.
Really
he would
cool. Have the select cuts already.
Yeah, like the weirdest things he could find. Like if he put on a Dead album, I almost ran out of the room. I was like, I can't stand this. And well, go figure. So that was fun. And then in the Hunting Park crowd, there was a guy named Ronnie who I'll just say he was a good salesperson, and he made a lot of money in sales and marketing. We'll leave it at that. And he sunk a lot of money into a ballroom that he leased out in Kensington, right under the L tracks.
Star Club.
The Starlight Ballroom.
Starlight Ballroom.
Yeah, and this became like our hangout.
Wow.
So, in fact, there were some guys in our group of people Darrell Williams and Peter and Rick Delapenna. They had a band called Barley Riggs, and they played there. So we just took over that joint for Friday nights.
What was that that kind of like area like then? Because it's kind of hard to imagine a theater there.
Well, it was kind of quiet and a bit dingy. There wasn't any heroin yet that we knew of, but it was still a place you don't want to hang out, But, it was still fairly safe. And that's as far as I'll go with that. But, we took the L to get there and whatever buses that would take us home. But it was fun. We had our own little place. It was like in California, they had the Family Dog, and we had, Starlight Ballroom. And then right about that same time zone, Larry Maggot opened up the Electric Factory, the original Electric Factory at 2201 Arch Street, which was basically a abandoned tire warehouse that he just painted black and put in like multiple light shows and a kinetic playground, whatever that was. I never quite bothered with that, but I always saw it through the corner of my eye, like, there's monkey bars in here. I'm like, what's that for? So I just went to see the bands because everybody played there, like Hendrix and Pink Floyd. And in fact, there was a Dead show there that I still wasn't a Deadhead at that time, but I went to see Spirit. The Spirit was the headliner. And every time the Dead came on, I was like, walk away, And I snuck in the bathroom for the late show and repeated the same pattern.
That's what I love, that idea of having the 2 or 3 sets in one day, kind of, it's kind of like you don't hear as much of events doing that anymore.
No, early and late shows. I mean, I guess Bill Graham probably started that, but when Larry did it at Electric Factory, and I didn't remember it until recently. I saw a poster, and it said, if you're going to the late show, you must be accompanied by a parent if you're under whatever age was on the posters. That's why I would sneak in the bathroom. Because I'm not going home to get my father and, hey, Dad, would you join me for the next set, So that didn't happen. And then on Sundays, we had the free concerts at Belmont Plateau, the Be-Ins, which I think, if I remember correctly, they started before the first Earth Day. Earth Day was in 70, so these were going on like about the same time as Electric Factory, like 68 through 70. So in 70, you had the Earth Day, and then
the first Earth Day event at Belmont
in Philly with Redbone.
Redbone.
I mean, Redbone is like so underrated. They're like a psychedelic Native American Indian band
who write hits.
Yeah,
they were good, really good.
They really were.
And Allen Ginsberg was there.
Yeah,
he was known to be there. And
and special speaker who we thought was cool at the time, Ira Einhorn. I'm like, oh man, who knew he would murder somebody and put her in a box? So.
He was a captivating speaker, probably.
Well, yeah, he was like our Ginsberg or something like that. We thought he was like hip and cool, but so we kind of follow anybody at that point. But there was some politicians there. I forget exactly who, but it was a good day. And then that gave birth to multiple Be-Ins every Sunday until, I think at the time, Frank Rizzo was the police commissioner. He wasn't mayor yet, fortunately, but maybe it was worse as police commissioner because he hated hippies. He hated, we had that whole thing with the MOVE thing. He had the whole gunfight down in West Philly. So he was a pretty bad guy, in my estimation. I wasn't really digging him, but he was a bit of a bully. And in fact, he lived about 3 blocks from Temple Stadium where they had the big Jimi Hendrix, Steve Miller, Cactus, Grateful Dead concert. That was my turning point in my life. Oh, my God. Yeah, that was May of 70, and it was just the longest day ever. I just, by the time it was over, I said, okay, my life changed that day. That's the day that the Dead hit me. Pigpen was on stage, and he was, commanding the entire scene.
And this stadium was North Broad Street.
It was the top of Broad Street at Mount Airy Avenue, where they cross, almost like Broad and Cheltenham. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a church on that property now, and I don't think the grounds are still visible, but it was cool. It's where the Temple football team played. And I had been to 2 football games prior to that, but this thing just was an all day thing, and it was life changing. So. And that got me into that whole scene. And then clocking forward to 73, and my buddy Joe and I, my music mentor, we were hanging out together, and I told I worked for this guy to fix stereo equipment, and I said, hey, Dave, I know you got that cool four-seater airplane. Would you give my buddy and I a ride up to this rock concert up in New York State, which is Watkins Glen?
Oh, no way.
So he took us up.
Wow.
And he got stranded there because it was so hectic with all the bands coming in and the lawyers and doctors, whatever goes on at a rock concert. But we said see you later and went on to see, that was the Allman Brothers. Well, the Grateful Dead opened up. You wouldn't know it because we're so far away. Like we went there the morning of the show, and the fences were long gone from the night before. We didn't even know that. We're walking around waiting to give our tickets up, and there's like no gates.
No gates, just walk in.
Just walk in. They were still building speakers on speaker stands.
Wow.
So I couldn't tell who was on the stage, but by the end of the night, and the band played in the middle, and they were amazing as always. And they got washed out by a rainstorm, and they never came back. And then the Allman Brothers finished, and by the end of the night, Joe and I got pretty close to the stage and hung out, and we just watched this jam session go on. And then we said, well, time to go home. We had to hitchhike home.
Oh, wow.
Our plane left already. So. And we're walking along this road. Well, we thought it was a road. It's really dark. It's a new moon. You couldn't see in front of your face. And we're walking on asphalt. It seemed like a road. There was a guardrail, and we see kids walking the other way. And they go, "Where are you guys going?" We're trying to get to Philly. And he goes, "Well, you're on the racetrack, man." so, but 2 rides later, we got home, and that was Watkins Glen. And then a year later, in '74, I was working at a drugstore on Market Street, hanging out at this record store next door, which was Jerry's Records at 11th and Market. And Jerry's was the premier record store in the city. Like anybody that bought an album probably bought one of Jerry's. So from hanging out there every day, I finally got a gig there. And I'm working there, and the manager at the time was Sid Payne. Sid Payne got hired by Electric Factory. Larry Magid took him, and then he left. And a guy by the name of Tom Sheehy, may he rest in peace, he just passed a few years ago. Tom took over the management position, and then at one point he came up to me, and I'm 22 years old, and Tom comes up to me and he goes, "I need to talk to you privately, but outside." So I'm sitting there on 11th and Market Street thinking I'm getting fired, and he goes, "I got a job with A&M Records. I'm going to give you the keys." I'm like, "Cool, man." So the first thing I did was double up on all the Grateful Dead albums. That was a must. So and it was a cool store because it was like right down in the middle, black and white. Like a Ramsey Lewis album would come out the same day of Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. We'd have like battling cash registers to see which one was selling more. So they were good years, and then they closed in '77, and I went on to Peaches Records up in Northeast Philly because Peaches came from Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had that whole wood crate motif, so they gutted an Acme at Welsh and the Boulevard and one at Merchantville, and it smelled like wood shop. Like we were just like totally covering the walls with wood and crates, and we had amazing buying power. I mean, they wound up going bankrupt because they, like, if an album sold like 50 in a week, they would say buy 200. I said, "Well, why am I buying 200?"
Yeah.
Well, because we want to make it look good.
Like overstock.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, their list of creditors when they finally went bankrupt was filled the entire front cover of Billboard. But they were good years. We had bands playing in the parking lot like the A's and Ken Queter and those guys.
Yeah, were there multiple Peaches, or was it kind of just the one?
Well, we were store 35, so they were nationwide. And I think there's like one left in Atlanta, but there's really no connection to the original Knee-High, which is Knee-High stood for Neil Hyman. There's Neil and Tommy Hyman were the owners.
Wow.
So they were fun years, and then so that was the Peaches thing, and then
did they have a Hall & Oates meet and greet there? Was that one?
I don't remember that, but I remember we had Van Halen in the store.
Wow.
And I think that was like 78 or 79, whatever tour that was. So they come up to the store in these 2 Brinks trucks, like these red Brinks trucks. And they come out. Now, we made like aisles out of wood crates, like to keep some order, or so we thought. So to make sure like no one got hurt and everything was like clean and nice. David Lee Roth jumps in, vaults over the register, vaults over the turnstile. Everybody's jumping around. The whole place erupted. So it was like, in fact, an MMR DJ was there, Joe Bonadonna, and he got freaked out and he handed me the mic. He goes, I don't know what to say. Like, all right, everybody calm down, calm down. Like, yeah, they were signing skin parts and stuff. It was fun.
Broadcasting from the store too. Yeah.
No. Well, actually, yeah, I guess he was. Come to think of it, but it was a mess. I mean, I've got pictures at home of the disarray, and who knows what was stolen that day. But the store got wrecked, and it was just like a big party. But and then once I got a call from the store manager in Merchantville, and he said, you and Mike Marrin was the store director, and he goes, you and Mike should come over today and hang out. There's a special thing going on here. He wouldn't tell us what. He said it's a surprise. So we drive over to Merchantville, which is near Cherry Hill. And we go into Steve's office. Steve was the store director, and there, sitting on the floor eating hoagies, was Talking Heads. I'm like, this is what? I'm like, and so we're sitting there barefoot. Everybody had their shoes off, and no camera. No one had a camera.
Wow.
And I was sitting next to Tina and David Burns, and it was really cool. So there was, like the Jerry's days were cool enough with a lot of press parties. Like we always had press passes for the Bijou Cafe because there was so many cool night spots. I mean, going back to the other story, I mean, the Electric Factory, for me, was like the first place I started going to for hot music in a small place. But I missed the Trauma by about 6 months, and Second Fret. There's so many places where all these bands would play. But it's kind of funny. I worked in Center City, but I didn't hang out in Center City. Like a lot of people I knew lived, like did Sampson Street, and they did Rittenhouse Square. But I just took the buses and trains back and forth, so I didn't get into that. And then I took a detour in the early '80s and went into the natural products industry and did some sales and marketing, which I still dabble with now and then.
Nice.
And towards, I guess, early '90s, I started doing these house parties. A friend of mine, Audrey Marsh, who is a friend of David Gann's, who created the Grateful Dead Hour and the Grateful Dead Channel.
Yeah.
So she had David on her property a couple times, and at one point she said, "I can't do this today. Do you want to do this for me?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I hosted a party for David, and then we did a second time with him in Huntington Valley, rather. And so, so the house party thing became a really cool idea. I thought was people would just show up, they'd hang out, they'd dance, they'd hear live music, we'd have a light show, and everybody bought food. So you get food and music and people. That's all I ever wanted in the first place. And so I had one of these parties in Haverford, or was it Havertown? Haverford, which is the one near City Avenue. Haverford, I think.
Haverford.
Yeah, so it was this guy's house, and it became a benefit for the, I think it was Hurricane Marina, the Puerto Rico hurricane. So I had a special guest, Susanna Millman, who is Susanna's from San Francisco, and she's married to Dennis McNally, who is the Grateful Dead historian. So she came, and she's a photographer, like with deep family passes, and she came and did a slideshow with a little pulpit, and she read and showed these slides and explained what we were seeing. And we had a silent auction. We had a nice house band with some friends of mine, Anders Alfeld, and Jamie Malley, and Joe Knox, and 2 or 3 other people. So it was a cool house party. And and then now we're clocking forward into, like, that was the fall of 2017. And so another detour was the following month after the hurricane benefit. I had a heart attack and bypass surgery in November of 2017. So that was like, a big stepping stone in my life where I had to like take a really deep look at what I'm doing and how I'm taking care of myself. But, the music still had to happen because that's what really motivates me. So in March of, now I'm clocking forward again, March of 2019, I went to this, the Lord's New Church in Huntington Valley, which it's a 100-acre estate, the Pitcairn estate. Theodore, not John.
Wow.
John Pitcairn opened up the town of Brinathan, but one of his sons, Theodore, had a little bit of a difference in the perspectives of the teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg, who's their seer that they followed, and that's a whole other episode of itself. So I had a 67th birthday party in this. Well, it was my 67th birthday, and someone I knew had rented this room, which is the church hall that used to be a sheep barn back in 1917.
Wow. Yeah.
And so now it's a church hall, and they use it for functions like dinners and banquets and things like that. So that night I met Clayton Walsh, who is the event director who works for the property management company. Property management company works right underneath the church. So Clayton and I met. He slipped me his business card and said, "Come back and see me in a week." And we took the golf cart tour and said, "Okay, we can have a festival here." We just saw like the whole makings of something. So from that point on, through I guess it was, well, I started my first show at LNC was September 17th, 2019, with the Whiskey Hicken Boys out of Phoenixville, and then we had about 15 shows that year.
Wow.
And then in March of 2020, I had a CD release party set up for a Hamilton, New Jersey-based band, Pansong. Pansong's part of that entire Beard Space group of people.
Beard Fest.
I've yet to go to one. I can't wait. I heard this one this year was off the charts. But that was going to be with Pure Jerry as well, which is a really great, I wouldn't say Grateful Dead tribute band, I'd say more Jerry Garcia band tribute band with Michael Morrow, who's an excellent player. And so that got canceled because of the COVID thing, and that's when the restrictions went into place. As soon as that happened, at that point, I had done enough shows there and kept the place from falling apart, so they believed I could do a good job, and they said, "Well, we can let you do it outside now."
Wow.
So we went out into the sheep fold where the sheep would go and graze. And then we started having shows there. And I right away did the 6-foot pods. I bought all these stakes. They call them snowplow stakes. So you can see the hydrants, when the snow's like 4 feet tall. And so I had little numbers on those. So every person that bought a ticket, or every, say, 2 or 3 people together, could sit in their own 6-foot by 6-foot pod.
Wow.
And each of those pods had 6 feet around it. So in the sheepfold, you had like about 70 people on the lawn, right where the band was, in the stage that we'd build. And then you'd have 3 balconies, which were just natural grass. Wow. And then after about a year of doing that, we graduated, we just like outgrow it pretty quickly. Started bringing in like a lot of the Dead tribute bands, which are always an easy sell. People are just going to show up.
Yep.
They don't care. They just show up. And so we got the big lawn at that point. So the big lawn is like, well, we could put the stage anywhere we want, and we started bringing all sorts of sound and lights, and it was just so much fun. So we did, that went on for close to 4 years. And they're actually putting a stop to that at this point. It got to be sketchy for the neighborhood because it's very conservative and quiet, and it's not like the weddings are any noisier, because they have a lot of weddings there, but it's that thumping bass that just you hear it all night till 10 p.m. And people, but you have other people that, like, once I lost my wallet one night, and the next morning some woman calls me. I jog here every day. I found a wallet. Got your name and address.
Wow. I
said, great. And I came and brought her a jar of honey for a gift, and I said, "What do you think of the music here?" And she goes, "Oh, we love it. We sit on our porch and listen to it every night."
Oh, wow.
So, but you have like the Bryn Athyn Council would meet once a month or something. They'd talk about trash pickup, this, that, and the other thing. And what about those concerts? And then we were always like a bone of contention,
Bring up
So because like when we did our Halloween show in October of 2020, which was the 3rd Dogs in a Pile show. I like, one of the things I really love to do is help new and aspiring artists get their footing and get moving, and then they can go to Live Nation. You know what I mean? I'm just like the in-between guy, which is fine. I like it that way.
Yeah.
And so Dogs in a Pile were like these young guys that like in their 20s out of Asbury that are like king of the heap now. They're working with Twiddle's management. And when Twiddle finally retires, they're going to be the #1 band. So we had like,
they're headliners now. They tour and they headline, and they're great.
Oh, they're so proficient, and they're a great family of people. All the people that follow them around, they're all like they're family. Everybody loves each other, and there's no drama. It's like I've seen a lot of drama, as any promoter will tell you, but you learn to live with it because you have drama with artists, you have drama with patrons and attendees and the people that you work with. But I've always prided myself and felt like my major focus in anything that any business arrangement that I had was relationship first.
Totally.
And the money second.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, I brought on a partner, Peter Shaffron, who used to run River Spirit Music festivals up in Hastings on the Hudson, which is up above the Tappan Zee Bridge. So Peter went underground when COVID hit, and he and I met through I think it was through the this New York consortium called Wall Street Dead Ahead, which are like well-to-do professional deadheads that hang out together in New York.
Really? Never heard of that.
Yeah, they were fun people to meet and fun people to know. And so Peter and I got to be friendly, and he put his stage away and put his festival away, and then he wound up doing these high-end video webcasts. And his little niche was he had this 360-degree camera.
Wow.
And for an extra $10 or so, you would get the virtual reality helmet, put that on. And
Yep.
Like if we did it at LNC, you'd be under the stars.
Wow.
But you'd be in Wyoming or something. So he and I became partners, and he used to run a law firm for 35 years, and he's like the perfect person for this partnership for me because now we're two instead of one.
Awesome.
And
he's big into music as well.
Oh, he's big into music, and we're looking for the bigger bands now as we expand the operation. Now that I'm an LLC and all that jazz, so we're in it to win it. It's like
sweet.
We're talking.
We're on the other end of COVID too. Where shows are thriving right now.
Yeah, they are. So, which makes it harder sometimes to book because you're up against like 72 things, but sometimes it's better to be up against 72 choices than one or two choices.
Yep.
So at least you're like right up there. So we kept those pods going for a while until the pandemic lifted. So we stopped the whole pod thing, and then we expanded a little bit. I had a 70th birthday party at this Ukrainian club in Horsham. It's a soccer club. And we had 4 bands. We were supposed to go to 11. And we're having all these technical issues, and I went up to the guy who runs the bar. I said, "Can we go till 1?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." I mean, the register's flying, and the beers are flying. So we had 4 bands and as many technical difficulties as you can imagine, but things went really well. There was like over 200 people there.
Wow.
So that was fun. And then the following year, I had a 71st birthday party at the Royal in Glenside, which is a sweet little place. Holds about 90 or so comfortably, and I hope to bring bands back in there again. And one of the bands I brought in there was the Great Bonfire, who I have on that disc. If you'd like to pop in their new single.
Yeah, you want to throw it on? Let's see.
The Great Bonfire. They're local. I think they're out of Bucks County, perhaps.
Let's see. Bonfire.
This is their brand new single, ladies.
Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay. Nothing good?
Nothing good.
All right.
Coming at you.
Here we go. The Great Bonfire with Nothing Good.
I'm just a late one, yeah. Give me slow ride, moonshine, taking my time. Mama's a safe one, yeah. It's that city bone, it's city bone blues. Skyscraper in a coming glass, a sea of easy races, everything. Yeah. See, I'm just a late one, yeah. Take it back.
Sweet. Welcome back.
Good to be back. Can you hear me? How's my mic?
It's good, good.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. How about now?
Yeah. Let me see. Something. Well, let me see.
Testing.
Cut into
Dead air.
Don't Dust in my eyes, I'll only tear more pages out of your book. But I'm not that kind of guy. Don't want mud in my eye. If you want to share my life, bring me my slippers and my someone else.
Check, 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 check. Yeah, I think we're, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
To the promised land, look the other way when I walk by. But I'm not that kind of guy. Don't want mud in my eye. If you want to share my life, bring me my slippers and light my fire. Live your life free.
Hello, hello. All right. Alrighty, we're back.
Sorry about that technical difficulty.
You know what it was? I think my phone hit some buttons on here. There we go.
Always those buttons. Well, that was a little taste of Elizabeth. So Elizabeth was one of the bands that played at the Beans, and Hank Ransom, Hammer and Hank Ransom, who at one point managed Dobbs. So
Oh, wow.
my gang from Hunting Park, we'd be there like the minute things started. We had our blanket right by the stage, and everybody was either, I guess we were distracted to the point where we weren't finding out who was playing when. But I always knew when Elizabeth was getting set up because they have a little American flag in their bass drum. And that was at that point, my Grateful Dead. They were the band I lived for.
Wow.
So that was what you just were playing before.
Yeah, Elizabeth. Great great group. One record.
Yeah, well, and then they became Good God. And I was just talking to Heather Ransom, who's Hank's daughter, and she said that Frank Zappa complimented them on covering one of their tunes better than anybody ever covered them. So Good God was like one of the first jazz fusion, which is far from your typical Philly. But the Elizabeth thing was kind of like psychedelic Philly, like the Nas and
Totally.
all those other bands. So while we're on the topic of new and aspiring talent, because we were talking off microphone before about how I like to network bands and put them together. Like when David Gans brought me a painted mandolin from California, but the mandolin player couldn't come. So I called my mandolin friend, Graham Ford, who's an unbelievable player. Wow. And Graham goes, well, we can't have a band with a name painted mandolin without a mandolin player. So he came. So I really kind of get a kick out of networking and putting talent together and building bands, even if it's just a jam session. And on the topic of new and aspiring bands, one of the hot bands that came my way, I was actually on a path trying to connect with Garrett Love from Philly, because he's just the bomb,
Wow. Yeah.
And so I went to his dad, Jeremy Gibney, and then Jeremy connected me to his son, Noah, who is a 15-year-old phenom singer, and I would like to play their new song for you next.
Great. So this is Noah and
Noah Gibney has about a dozen gigs coming up. Oh, by the way, Great Bonfire is coming to 118 North on September 2nd. I just want to throw that plug in there.
awesome. Sounded great too.
Yeah, they're a good band.
And got Noah queued up here. The name of this track, was it Serendipity or the one?
Yeah, Serendipity. Yep.
Great.
And he wrote a song with G Love. I had Noah and his band play at my first gig at the Rotunda, which is this beautiful old 1911 building on the Drexel campus.
Love the Rotunda.
It's really cool, and it went over well enough that we're invited back, which is a big thing. The only issue is they don't have HVAC, so there's no air
It
conditioning.
is hot in there.
Yes, and they're pretty full with their schedule because when the International House closed, they're getting all those eclectic bands. My first time in that building, my friend Richard took me there, and it was 3 Mongolian throat singers. I'm like, Richard, you want to do something to make the music even better? He goes, no, you won't need that. So we were like, okay. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then he was telling me they get paid in herbs and money. So brought a little gift to them. We had some fun upstairs in the green room. But anyway, so I brought Noah in there and went over really well. And they gave me 2 dates.
Oh, wow.
One in October and one in January. So,
oh, sweet.
I'm not sure if we're going to do the October because it's the Halloween weekend and it might be difficult to get people to do anything on a Sunday.
Nice.
After Halloween party. So I think it's January 6th. So I don't know what band that'll be yet, but we'll be back at the Rotunda.
Awesome.
So Noah killed them. All his relatives came. It was like family day. So
here we
let's
go.
play a tune.
Nice.
Sometimes I feel so down and out, like nothing's going my way. Then the clouds they disappear, and the sunshine takes out the gray. Serendipity is always meant to be. What will be, will always be. Serendipity to me. Yeah, I know I've been lucky. Good fortune has brought many rainy days. No, you don't have to worry. Just let go, and good vibes will be here to stay. Serendipity is always meant to be. What will be, will always be. Serendipity to me. Whoa, gonna have a thing, alright. Today might be the day. Serendipity is always meant to be. What will be, will always be. Serendipity to me. Serendipity to me. Serendipity to me. Serendipity to me.
Let's do it. All right, we're back.
Here we are.
That was Noah.
Noah
Gibney.
and his trio. This kid's going to go places. He's 15, and he's got a great family, great support system. He's from the Reading area. So one of the things Peter and I are working on as we expand our operation is the city of Coatesville. I can't get too much into it
Wow.
because papers aren't signed yet.
Yeah.
But we're looking at churches. We're looking at 8 acres for a festival. We're looking at different things there.
Awesome.
And I think Noah would do great up there because that's, you got Westchester, Newark, Delaware, Reading, Lancaster, Phoenixville. So what happened was the town of Coatesville, the railroad that went from Thorndale to Paoli used to go further when the Reading Railroad owned the line, and they cut the line. And that was a steel town like Phoenixville, and they just dried up when the line got cut. So SEPTA is reattaching the railroad to go to Harrisburg.
Awesome.
So this town's going to wake up. It's going to be like,
Wow.
I predict it'll be the next Phoenixville. So Peter and I are like on a ground floor trying to, get our foot into the scene there because there's a lot of investors coming out of the woodwork to set up shop,
Wow.
So, and we're looking at a church. Here we go again with another church.
It's a great space.
Something about churches. Like I have a friend, Martin Nolan, who lives in Gloucester City. He bought a church that he used to go to as a Cub Scout.
Oh, wow.
And the first thing he thought of was music when he went there. And I've been hounding him for 4 years to do like Sunday shows,
Absolutely.
And he uses it like a rehearsal space for different bands.
They're great for that and studio kind of recording and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, like at this point, we're looking to expand into different territories, into different municipalities, Coatesville being part of it. We do have a date of September 30th to do a show at the Moravian Tile Works in Doylestown. That'll be announced when we figure out who we're going to have play.
Awesome.
And which should be any day now because we know we need a good 2 months to promote it.
What's a good spot to keep up with the updates? And
people can go to circledconcerts.com, and I think before you blink, there'll be a pop-up for a mailing list. It's sort of geared. So if you get on my mailing list, our MailChimp is about 1,700 at this point.
Awesome. Wow.
Oh, by the way, Peter also sells tickets. He has a ticket company, so the ticket service that we have collects all the emails.
Oh, sweet.
Unfortunately, it's like if 4 people want tickets, we only get 1 email. So we try to encourage people to come to the site, and if they want to know more, we'll put them on the list, and we'll hound them until they say, please take us off the list, which doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, people like seeing that.
Yeah,
stuff.
they want to know what's going on, so if they can come to them in their email, but some people, get offended and too much email. Like we learned not to send emails on Mondays, which are people just trying to recover from the weekend.
Yeah.
Fridays are no good, so it's like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's kind of a good thing. So, but back to the topic of aspiring artists, there's a band that I discovered on the streets of Collingswood during one of those street fairs. My wife and I like to go to craft fairs, and there's usually live music. There was a band called Pure Petty, and they do Tom Petty to a T, and I just was really attracted. And I'd like to play a cut by them and want to give a little plug on their next couple shows, October 20th at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City and October 21st at Sweeney's in Northeast Philadelphia. So Pure Petty has a new single out, and I'd like to fire that up.
Let's do it. Let's go. This is Pure Petty. Yeah, that was Pure Petty with a little compilation of their live performances.
Yeah, I'm big on the tribute bands. I think at the end of the day, you know, yeah, there's a zillion Grateful Dead cover bands, and don't get me wrong, they're still my faves. But at the end of the day, it's like there's a lot more music to be heard. And in fact, there's a band I'm looking at trying to see about booking them called Steely Dead. So they do Steely Dan and Grateful Dead. That would be different for a change. But on my path, I discovered a really cool Pink Floyd tribute band called Shine On from South Jersey with this amazing singer, Camille Kay. And I brought a little track for them as well.
Sweet. We got it loaded up here, and I think maybe we'll close out with. Should we close out with Shine On?
Yeah, we can do that. And please, people, keep in touch and reach out to circledconcerts.com and send your email information. And I'll be glad to let you know what we're up to.
circledconcerts.com. Circle D Productions.
Thanks for having me, Steven.
Yeah, thank you so much, Denny.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. Anytime you want to come on, and it's a blast. We'd like to promote local music and local artists all the time.
Can I bring 100 albums with me?
Yeah, right. Maybe not in this weather.
No. I sold my records on a very dark day in my life. We won't even discuss that.
Yeah. This is Shine On, and thanks again so much, Denny. Appreciate it.
Later, dude.